Instead of focusing on the crimes that I denounce, the United States treat me as a criminal.
I mean, I'm a little confused. I mean, I believe you, and I've read this, but I'm just confused by it. So did you take up arms against anyone? Did you help any armed terror group? Like, what exactly was your crime? It sounds like you were describing crimes.
Tucker, this is my only weapon. It's a pen. It's a pen. This is what I do. And yeah, apparently it's very dangerous.
In the days immediately before the United States imposed sanctions on her, Francesca Albanese released a major report and took direct action aimed at several major U.S. companies. She accused them of being complicit in what she described as Israel's economy of genocide and urged legal and regulatory measures against them. Albanese's From Economy of Occupation to Economy of Genocide report, released in late June and early July 2025, went far beyond the boundaries of legitimate human rights criticism. Instead of presenting a sober, evidence-based assessment, the report was a polemical document driven by ideological hostility toward Israel and couched in the language of neo-Marxist and classical anti-Semitic tropes. Albanese recycles the vocabulary of neo-Marxist grievance politics, reducing a complex and tragic war to a crude morality tale of profit-seeking oppressors and exploited victims. By framing Israel's actions as the logical outcome of supposed economic motives and corporate enrichment, the report walks uncomfortably close to rhetoric that has historically been used to vilify Jews as uniquely driven by money and material gain. By invoking the anti-Semitic trope that Jews profit from harming children, and by portraying Hamas merely as a political party, Albanese's report reveals a deeply radicalized anti-Semitic worldview. Still, a neo-Marxist anti-Semite pretending to be an objective UN human rights special rapporteur is not far enough for U.S. sanctions, a country proud of its liberal free speech tradition. Except she went a step further. In that report, she named over 60 companies worldwide she said were complicit in enabling or profiting from Israel's occupation and military operations in Gaza, including many major U.S. companies in tech, defense, finance, energy, and logistics, such as Microsoft, Alphabet, Google, Amazon, and others. Before publishing the report, she also reportedly sent letters, correspondence, to dozens of firms, including major U.S. corporations, accusing them of breaching international law and urging responses or action. The U.S. government characterized those letters as threatening correspondence and part of what it termed her campaign of economic warfare. She called for international legal steps, including possible international criminal court action, against some of these companies and executives for their alleged involvement. The U.S. government's official statement said Albanese was sanctioned because of what it described as her report accusing U.S. and Israeli companies and individuals of wrongdoing, her letters that allegedly contained extreme or unfounded accusations against those corporations, and her support for legal actions, e.g. ICC prosecution. In Washington's framing, this went beyond what considered legitimate UN reporting and amounted to political and economic warfare that allegedly threatened U.S. interests and sovereignty, hence the sanctions.
The United States is imposing sanctions on UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese for her abuse of that role to directly engage in ICC actions against Israeli officials. In recent weeks, she has also targeted U.S. companies in an unacceptable campaign of political and economic warfare.
Francesca Albanese didn't just report. She abused her UN position to advance her personal neo-Marxist jihad against Israel. In her UN capacity, which is not that of a news agency, her so-called reporting carries legal and geopolitical consequences. She sent letters to dozens of firms, including major U.S. corporations, accusing them of breaching international law and demanding responses or action. That is using her UN position to blackmail U.S. companies. And in a moment of poetic justice, what she tried to inflict on her victims came back on her.
Within Israel, there's almost no discussion of what's happening in Gaza, and that any criticism of it is immediately discounted as anti-Semitism. And of course, that's happening to me in the United States. Well, you're just an anti-Semite. And no matter how often you say, well, I hate anti-Semitism, they don't believe you. And this does seem like a kind of defense mechanism where like no criticism can be true. It's all just hate. We're not doing anything wrong and no one can talk about it. Have you run into that attitude?
Yeah, I've run into this attitude. I mean, what is shocking is that it doesn't only happen inside Israel. In fact, inside Israel, there is criticism. There are organizations like B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights who have denounced the genocide. What has been shocking to me as a European, as a Western person, is the level of denialism, the vilification of the Palestinians as they go through what they go through. So Palestinians are killed, they are blamed, as we have heard, and they are smeared. And there has been a denialism of what is happening that is again, has no precedent in recent history.
I don't think people have any idea or understand what Hamas is. Hamas is a political force. That won the election in 2005, whether we like it or not. Those were called the most democratic elections. And Hamas put together a system of schools, public facilities, and hospitals. It was simply the authority, as it was called. In technical jargon, the de facto authority. So it is critical that you understand that when you think of Hamas. You should not necessarily think of cutthroats, people armed to the teeth, or fighters. It's not like that.
Very disingenuous to use, like, to understand or try to force anti-Semitism on what happened on October 7th. And I said, maybe some Palestinians among those who had attacked Israel on October 7th were also anti-Semite. But Israel was not attacked because of that. The hatred that killed Israelis on that day was not prompted by anti-Semitism, was prompted by years and decades of dispossession, humiliation, subjugation.
Francesca Albanese's statements and positions appear deeply ideological, reflecting a neo-Marxist worldview that downplays the severity of Islamic jihad and portrays terrorists as oppressed freedom fighters. She presents her controversial interpretations as moral clarity and uses her role within the UN in ways that give those radical perspectives legal and social authority. This mainstreams highly politicized narratives and frames her personal opposition to Israel as if it were UN law. Such rhetoric, presented as moral common sense, risks creating an environment that encourages or legitimizes extremist actions, including violence connected to the Hamas-Israel war, Palestine action raids in the UK, and the Washington embassy attack. For these reasons, her conduct as a UN official deserves scrutiny and potential consequences beyond existing US sanctions. Francesca Albanese represents the type of ideologue who blames all the problems of the world on the West and, by extension, Israel. She is a type of social Marxist who seeks so-called justice by undermining the classical liberal world and promoting Islamic jihad, which she sees as a victim of capitalism. Together with her natural allies, Islamic terrorists represent the enemy of the free world. Evil is not only exercised by evil people, but also by dogmatic zealots and idiots. And unfortunately, such zealots cannot be allowed to undermine the well-being of this world, chasing their dogmatic obsessions.